Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Christian, for joining.
Thank you very much.
So my name is Robin. I run a site called Tech.eu. We cover the European tech industry. I've been doing that for about 10 years. And one of the companies that I've always found very interesting is Six Wunderkind, or Wunderlist, which most people know you from, which was the product that became the company name.
Exactly.
When was it actually founded?
2010.
2010. And how did that happen? What's the background here?
I think we had a very unique story because like most of the tracks are focused on how do you scale your company from like nothing to something and then to something really big. For us, we were coming out of an agency business, helped startups to design their products and to develop their products. And in 2008, 2009, we went through some bankruptcies by our customers and decided, hey, having like 2 or 3 customers is a really bad idea. Let's have millions and let's focus on software as a service and let's build a product. And we decided to just look into the software as a service industry, and we thought Basecamp was really interesting, and we thought we could build a bigger, better project management system. Raised some angel funding, and with that money, we decided to build a small prototype, which was Wunderlist. In that time, you had Evernote and Dropbox as like these role models in the cloud computing software industry. And we thought, hey, we can take the same kind of mechanics, cross-platform, cloud-based, free, for the to-do space. And we've built Wunderlist, which was a to-do app, by the way, for the ones that don't know. And we launched overnight. We had thousands of users. Next day, we had tens of thousands of users. So we were extremely overwhelmed, by the way, by that growth, and had to do everything afterwards, like analyzing why we are growing fast, where the users are coming from, building some kind of data science team. So that's how it started.
But how do you explain the overnight success, at least in terms of users and downloads? Was it because it was still relatively early days of the App Store, where it was just easier to get noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to founders all day here, and when we started, everything was easier. Apps in that time were super hot. Every kind of category had to be like dominated by one player. So Notes was Evernote, Files was Dropbox, and we were then Tasks. And I think at that time there was no good to-do app, so we were the first ones. People were looking for it. I think the iPad has launched after we launched, so we were the first real good to-do app on iPad, I think. Really good. Sounds a little arrogant, that's not what I mean. So yeah, I think everything was a little easier, and yeah, we were a free product with really good features, synchronized the data across all your devices, which was unique.
Well, you're being modest. You're saying it was a good app, but it was a good app. It was featured as well, like many times.
Yeah, Apple
won some awards as well,
and Google really loved the product. That was
so that must have helped as well. Like,
yeah, totally, of course, yeah.
All right. Was it always the idea to start with to-do or tasks and then build sort of a suite of products?
Yeah, so the lucky accident that happened was that we were forced to think small because if you build a product for iPhone, iPad, Mac, Windows, Android phones, Android tablets, etc., everything just becomes incredibly complex, and you need to build like a suite of software products with a small engineering team. So everything you do had to be extremely simple, which allowed us to build like the small, really effective product. But originally, we wanted to build this project management suite. Task was the first feature. Notes would have been the second. Files would have been the third. Calendar the fourth. But we just never did it because we were just, like I said, overwhelmed with what happened, and then had to grow. Like every year, new iPhone, new features, and yeah, constantly overwhelmed.
But that's interesting to me because, like most people, will start a startup with a certain goal in mind, or at least where do you want to get to, and then learn about how to scale and
Yeah.
market and pricing and whatnot. You had to figure that out sort of after the fact,
Yeah.
which is also interesting because it was it wasn't your first company, but it was your first startup in a way,
Yeah.
because an agency works differently. So what is some of the things that you remember that you had to learn in record time, because you had to kind of solve the problem when it was already there rather than...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, after, like, I'm in the process of starting a new company right now. That's also why I'm here, and I want to learn again how things work. But this time, I start a company in a very different way, right? I research markets and everything. I mean, it's not like I didn't do that the first time, but it's very different. This time, I would love to start a company without investors and external funding. Would like to do it myself. Would like to grow organic, a little smaller and more independent, and we'll see how that goes.
Does that mean you had bad experiences with investors, or am I reading this wrong?
Not really, because yes and no. Some investors I really liked, and I actually reinvested some of my personal money into those funds they run. So I definitely appreciated everyone's help. But I think once you're at the stage where you have investors like Thrive Capital or Sequoia, and in my case I had Mike Moritz on my board, which is a nice fellow, but also pretty tough with founders if things go wrong. And in our case, we just didn't grow as fast as others. Like you had Instagram and WhatsApp, which were exploding, and we were like this small to-do app based in Berlin, and had success, but not enormous success. And if you have investors that bet on 10x, 20x the return they invest, the return after their investment, and you don't deliver after a certain time, it gets tough. And also, I'm not in the game to build something to sell it. I would love to have a company long term. So yeah, it's everyone's decision. In our case, Wunderlist was a very unique opportunity. Super happy what happened, how it happened. I mean, lots of the investors are my personal friends now, and I know their kids. It's all good, but I wouldn't recommend it if you
can avoid it.
If you can avoid it, it's unique.
All right, so let's go back to the early days again. Well, early-ish days. So you launched this company, it gets a lot of attention, lots of users. I know a lot of your focus was on good design, which a lot of people appreciated, and it's part of the reason of the success, I assume. But what are some of the metrics or the KPIs that you, at the time, thought were very important to you, and that you communicated to your team most often?
To be honest, in the beginning, it was just growth. Grow as fast as you can, be featured constantly, get as many users as possible. Then after we had, I would say, 150,000 daily active users, we just had to optimize the product. But I would say that even though we looked a lot on user engagement, cohorts, when are users leaving us after 60 days or 6 months, and to be honest, every number we had was great. The primary focus we've had was, let's get more users. Let's get 10 million users, 20 million users, 30 million users. And we got those users through App Store promotion primarily, and a little bit of viral mechanics like list sharing and stuff. People just inviting each other to lists. So yeah, those were primarily the numbers, and then yeah, at the end, it was, I would say, the same, just grow as fast as you humanly can.
Well, I guess it helps that a to-do list is kind of a universal problem to have, right?
Yeah.
So, but then you're also up against other companies, because a lot of people I remember at the time, when the Berlin startup ecosystem was kind of getting in the news more often, and lots of hyped companies, SoundCloud, you guys, that it was often said, Wunderlist is just a feature.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you ever agree with that, or?
It's a bizarre thing that happened for me, because if someone would have told me, in your life you will build a to-do app and sell it to Microsoft, I would have said, are you crazy? What? To-do app, for me personally, is not a huge achievement, not even technically. But if you work on it daily and you try to build a delightful product that uses love, it's extremely difficult. And just the technical endeavors we had to do to like build a seamless synchronization of your data across all your devices, I mean, was a crazy project for everyone involved. And extremely complicated. But right now, 2 years after the exit, I think it was just a great thing that happened for me personally, for everyone involved. The next project will be similar, I think. We're looking at different categories and thinking like in which category can we build the #1 product that everyone is using, basically. So great learning process for me, I think.
Right. So your focus at the time was growth, primarily. Was monetization ever on your mind? Or was
From day one, actually.
Okay.
Before we actually built the product, we thought about how to make money, because I'm a businessman. And we just never had the chance to really focus on it. Because, like I said, you launch this product, then you know it has bugs all over the place. You need to fix those things. Then the ecosystems constantly change, and you need to update. Before Microsoft bought us, we were actually communicating what we are currently working on. And one of the biggest projects we were working on was Wunderlist for work or business and teams. A little bit like Slack pricing scheme, where you have like a work environment in Wunderlist. That's what it would have looked like if I would have continued to work on it.
Was that Wunderkit? That was
Wunderkit was something different. Wunderkit was a completely different product. I mean, we pivoted 2 or 3 times in our company history from like one product to the other product and back. Wunderkit was like the second product that we've built and completely failed with, and we burned millions of dollars building it and shut it down after 6 months, I think, because it was crap. And yeah, we pivoted back to Wunderlist and built something out of it.
But I do think it takes a little bit of guts to actually admit that it was crap and stop it.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people keep their products in their companies for too long, I feel, but that's another debate. So you've alluded to the Microsoft acquisition a few times, but the reason I was asking you about which metrics were important to you was so I could get to my next question. What were the metrics that were important to Microsoft when they started talking to you about potential acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would add to that, like which metrics were important to us, I think the most important metric was like building a delightful product. And it's extremely hard to measure because it's user satisfaction in the end, but how do you measure if people love your product or not? But that was, I think, the #1 thing we focused on while designing and like iterating on the product. And Microsoft was different. Microsoft approached us in, I don't even know when, but 8 months before we actually announced that we got bought by Microsoft. And they looked at like the mobile space. They acquired a company which was a email app based on Outlook technology or Microsoft Exchange, bought it, renamed it to Outlook, then had huge success with that and thought, hey, we can now build a calendar app and a to-do app as well and a notes app. But how can we like be faster getting on mobile? How can we do this within 6 months instead of 5 years? Let's just buy those companies that are category leaders. And we were in that field right now. We were the category leader in terms of users, but also in terms of like quality of the leadership team, amount of engineers in the team. Berlin was incredibly cheap at that time, so we had an excellent engineering team.
It kind of still is cheap.
It still is, yeah. So I think Microsoft, I know that they looked at everything, like AnyDo, which is a great company building a great product, Todoist, great competitor. I definitely appreciate those other products. And we were the lucky ones that Microsoft chose. Made us a good offer, and that was it.
But am I correct to assume that Microsoft never really asked or cared about how many users you had, or how much revenue you had?
I mean, I remember very clearly how the guy that bought us said, I couldn't care less about your users because we have way more. But he was interested in getting a team that could help him bring, like, to help Microsoft be the #1 to-do app or to own it and have the #1 note-taking app. I mean, the guy who bought us was the manager, or is the manager of OneNote, and tasks and notes are very similar in a way. And some of our engineers are now working at OneNote, on OneNote, and helping the team to build a better product. So I think it just naturally made sense. It was just coincidence. Like, they looked for a solution, and we were the solution.
Yeah, and you fit right in, you fit all the boxes.
Exactly.
But then you also told me yesterday the guy who you keep referring to at OneNote actually had to sell the acquisition more to Microsoft than you've ever had to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So how that worked, a lot of founders, I'm not sure if any one of you like wants to sell his company, but in case you do, here's the story how it works at a big corporate. For us, we learned that you actually need to identify the person that is running the product that potentially could buy you or integrate you. In that case, it was OneNote. And the boss of OneNote approached us and asked us, would you be open to partner? And yeah, so you need to identify the product sponsor, and then the guy who runs the team needs to pitch his purchase idea to the executive team, to Satya and
So rather
Bill
than
Gates.
convince him, you need to help him convince the
Exactly.
decision makers.
So I helped him creating the slides for
Right.
Satya, or even the presentation for Bill Gates, who finally approved the deal.
That's funny. I'm going to go to questions from the audience because we only have 3 minutes left. Top ones for how long are you going to work for Microsoft? So the acquisition happened a little over 2 years ago, or at least was announced a little over 2 years ago.
I think that I already answered. I said that I'm in the process of starting something new, so technically I'm
But
leaving.
were you
I'm
at
leaving
Microsoft? You worked at Microsoft for how long?
2 years.
2 years, okay. You also did some angel investments in the meantime. Which
Exactly.
we won't get to probably, but
Yeah.
all right. So 2 years was kind of like in your vesting agreement, I assume. It was like
Exactly.
part of the
Yeah.
deal.
2 years. Yeah.
So you mentioned you'd like to do your next project without investments. Is it because you have enough money to finance yourself? You can answer that if you want, or is it because of your regrets, which I already kind of asked.
Yeah, it's not because of regrets. I'm heavily involved in the venture capital industry. I've made my personal investments. I'm involved in, like, I'm a partner at a seed firm. I love that industry, and I think it's really helpful for founders. I just would love to have a company myself for 50 years, if I could. And I just want to challenge myself to do the other way and bootstrap a company. And it's just a new thing. We'll see. Maybe I do the exact opposite and raise money. So we're currently looking at different categories. We're looking at different things to build, like even cryptocurrencies or some hardware products. We'll see what we're doing is currently open for discussion.
I've also noticed that a lot of people, when they exit and they have personal money to invest, they still like to raise from professional investors for other reasons, so not invest their own money for good reason. What convinced Sequoia specifically to invest in the first place? Because that is true. They weren't really that big investors in Europe, for that matter, let alone Berlin. So.
We were the first investment by Sequoia in Germany, and also I remember how Mike Moritz explained to me on a small piece of paper, like, this is the United States in terms of value of all tech companies, and this is Europe, which was a flat line on the piece of paper. And he said, like, it's just not interesting for us to invest in Europe. And which was fascinating for me as, like, the first company that partnered with Sequoia. But how it happened was we flew to London, then New York, then San Francisco, and pitched to, I think, 40 VCs. And Sequoia was my ultimate target because I knew they were invested in Dropbox and Evernote, and I just wanted to get that experience. So I basically used the 39 other VCs to train myself. then I went to Sequoia and had like a good pitch because I knew exactly every question that could come up. I have already answered in other meetings. I polished my slides to the extreme, and we basically, the story we've pitched was you could be the VC that could be involved in every single productivity leader.
That's a good
Dropbox,
one.
Evernote, Wunderlist.
So you did
And
your homework.
it took actually 3 days to it took one meeting with Mike Moritz and his partner, Michael Abramson. They were absolutely convinced. I think 2 days later, because it was a Friday or Saturday, I can't remember, Monday morning, first meeting was me in front of 30, 40 Sequoia partners. I was extremely nervous and yeah, explained what we were doing. And then next day I had the term sheet and the deal was basically done.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
From both sides. Very cool story. You've built a very good product, went through a good acquisition, so kudos to you. Thank you for
very
sharing
much.
your experience. We're out of time, unfortunately, but thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.